Good afternoon and welcome. You're watching News Central now on News Central Television. My name is Mazino Appeal. The top stories this hour. Representatives of House of Representatives to invite military chiefs over alleged unlawful detention by 177 Nigerian Army Battalion in Nasarawa State. And military says it will reintegrate surrendering bandits as it intensifies its crackdown on Lakurawa in the northeast. And military drone strike kills 15 civilians on Sudan's closed highway. Details coming up now. And now the news on News Central at this hour begins with security matters, where the House of Representatives has resolved to invite the Chief of Defense Staff, the Chief of Army Staff, and the Commanding Officer of the 177 Battalion over an alleged unlawful arrest and detention of a community leader in Nasarawa State. Honorable Mansour Soro, who moved the motion during Tuesday's plenary, explained that on December 9, 2024, the community leader Bello Badijo was arrested in Malia Town, Nasarawa State, by officers of the 177 Battalion of the Nigerian Army with no prior invitation or court injunction. He further stated that 1 week after, Badijo is yet to be arraigned, which signifies an unlawful act by the Nigerian Army and a violation of the fundamental rights as provided in sections 34, 35, and 36 of the 1999 Nigerian Constitution as amended. The service chiefs are to appear before the House Committee on Army, Human Rights and Justice on Thursday, 20th December 2024. And staying with security matters, the Nigerian Military High Command has announced plans to reintegrate surrendering bandits and terrorists in the northwest. This comes as special forces have been deployed to combat the Lakurawa terrorist group operating in the region. The Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, disclosed this as part of efforts to neutralize the threat posed by Lakurawas and other criminal elements in the northwest. The development follows a deadly attack by the Lakurawa group on a community in Kebbi State in November, which claimed 17 lives. The initiative, tagged Operation Safe Corridor Northwest, is designed to rehabilitate and reintegrate repentant bandits into society. It mirrors the Operation Safe Corridor Northwest program launched in 2015 to de-radicalize, rehabilitate, and reintegrate former Boko Haram insurgents. And now the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, has assured Nigerian Army personnel of his commitment to lead by example, promising that his words will always match his actions. General Oluyede made this pledge on Monday at the opening ceremony of the 2024 Chief of Army Staff Annual Conference held at the Army Headquarters Command Officers Mess in Abuja. In his address, the Army Chief paid tribute to the late Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taoreed Lagbaja, who had initially planned the conference before his passing. During the event, the COAS also presented life insurance checks to the next of kin of personnel who paid the ultimate sacrifice in service to the nation. Additionally, he handed over Hilux vehicles to regimental sergeant majors as part of efforts to enhance operational efficiency.
This end, I shall lead by example, and my words will be my bound. I urge you to engage actively with your troops, ensuring that they are all motivated, prepared, and ready to take challenges head-on. Remember, as leaders, we must embody decisive action and set good examples that inspire the force.
The Defense Headquarters has dismissed claims that the French military plans to establish a base in Nigeria. In a statement on Monday, Major General Edward Buba, Director of Defense Media Operations, called the reports false and mischievous, noting that they stem from rumors of French soldiers arriving in Maiduguri. Buba reiterated that the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, had previously debunked these claims in various media engagements. He urged Nigerians to disregard the fake news, emphasizing that it was the work of mischief makers. The military, he said, remains committed to its constitutional duty of safeguarding Nigeria's territorial integrity. And now to discuss this, we're joined by public affairs analyst Jide Ojo. Jide Ojo, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
It's my pleasure. Good afternoon, Happy.
Yes. So getting straight to it, how do you think these false reports impact public perception of the military and the government's handling of security issues?
Well, I think it leaves a sore taste in the mouth that in 2024 we still have a very thriving rumor mills, should I say fake news peddling rumor mills. This is becoming unbecoming. Was it last week or early this week, the Independent National Electoral Commission had to issue a statement debunking the fact that the INEC chairman is alive. I mean, debunking the fact that INEC chairman is dead. And that is not the first time. So if it can happen to the INEC chairman, it's also thriving in the case of Nigerian military that French troops or French government is planning to have a military base in Nigeria. For what reason would that be? Nigeria and France may have military ties, but not being a former colonial master, I think it will be weird to have France setting up a military base in Nigeria. And I just hope that the authorities will do more to put the rumor millers and then those who are engaging in fake news and misinformation and disinformation will help to put them out of business by being very proactive. Not just proactive on the online, but also digging into the having the Directorate of Military Intelligence and trying to find out the sources of this very fake news, because it has a way of unsettling citizens of Nigeria, not just military men and officers, but even the civilian population. Because when you hear that a military base is going to be built in your community, that will definitely flutter feathers, and there will be concerns raised as to what will be the security.
I think we might have some technical issues with speaking with Mr. Jide Ojo. So we'll move on and perhaps bring that conversation back later. So away from that, weeks after emerging the winner of the November 7th presidential election in Ghana, the president-elect John Mahama has paid a courtesy visit to President Bola Tinubu at the presidential villa in Abuja. This was disclosed by Tinubu's senior special assistant on social media, Dada Olusegun, on Tuesday. President Tinubu earlier in a telephone call to Mahama congratulated the president-elect with anticipation that his ascension to power for the second time would further bring stability to the economic community of West African states. Ghana's Electoral Commission declared ex-president and main opposition leader John Dramani Mahama winner of the presidential election with 56.55% of the votes. And Nigeria is preparing to reopen its embassy in Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea, following 3 years of closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic. A statement from the Russian embassy on December 11 reveals that Nigeria's country's charge d'affaires to North Korea disclosed the country's plans in a meeting with Alexander Metsogora, the Russian ambassador to the Asian country. The statement said both envoys had a thorough exchange of views on current issues relating to the Korean peninsula. Metsogora also expressed his country's wishes for the successful implementation of plans to restore the Nigerian diplomatic mission. North Korea shut down its borders in early 2020 over the COVID-19 pandemic, forcing foreign diplomats and international organizations to withdraw from the country. And the Federal Executive Council has approved a 47.9 trillion naira budget proposal to the presentation to be presented to the National Assembly for approval. FEC, during its final meeting for the year 2024, also approved free train rides for citizens from December the 20th this year as part of the federal government's support for citizens traveling for the Christmas and New Year festivities. Hamadin Ui here reports.
In attendance were cabinet ministers. The meeting, the last for the year 2024, is expected to commence its recess for members from December the 18th to January the 6th, 2025. Following deliberations at the meeting, the Minister of Information and National Orientation informed newsmen of President Tinubu's approval for free train services for citizens nationwide.
Government is also happy to announce that, as we did last year, there will be free train service to all Nigerians from the 20th up until the 5th of January. Free train service nationwide.
Also, the Minister of Education gave details of the Council's approval for the change of name for the University of Abuja.
At the Federal Executive Council meeting, Mr. President Bola Tinubu graciously moved a motion for FEC approval for the renaming of University of Abuja to Yakubu Gowon University, Abuja. This was Mr. President's motion, and this was moved in recognition of General Yakubu Gowon contribution to the stability of our country in upholding our federalism.
One of the core highlights of the meeting was the approval of a 47.9 trillion naira 2025 budget for the nation and upgrade of several electricity substations as part of the Siemens electricity project.
The 2025 framework is based on a benchmark, oil price benchmark of $75 per barrel, oil production of 2.06 million barrels per day, exchange rate of 1,400 naira.
This budget is based on government spending in critical areas, but also, more importantly, encouraging and making room for private sector investment.
The Executive Council meeting held this afternoon. There were basically two approvals for the Federal Ministry of Power as presented. The first was actually an approval for the award of contracts for engineering, procurement, construction and financing for the implementation of the 330, 132 kV and 132.3 kV substations upgrade under the phase 1 of the Presidential Power Initiative, popularly known as the Siemens contract.
The 2025 budget proposal is based on an oil price benchmark of $75 per barrel at 2.06 million barrels per day and 1,400 naira per dollar. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadin Uyi.
Coming up, 2025 budget. President Tinubu reschedules presentation to National Assembly. After the break. You're welcome back. Now, President Bola Tinubu's presentation of the 47.9 trillion naira 2025 budget proposal to the joint session of the National Assembly, initially scheduled for Tuesday 17th December, has been postponed to Wednesday 18th December. According to Senate sources, the rescheduling was confirmed by a senior management official of the National Assembly. We also understand that an official statement regarding the postponement is expected shortly. The postponed, or rather the proposed budget, is part of the 2025-27 medium-term expenditure framework approved by the Federal Executive Council last month. The framework includes plans for 9.22 trillion naira in new borrowing to address the budget deficit. It also sets an oil price benchmark of $75 per barrel, a daily production target of 2.06 million barrels, and an exchange rate of 1,400 naira to the dollar. And now to discuss this, we're joined by Inyabong Usen, Head Research and Policy Advisory Budget. Ini, you're welcome. Good afternoon to you.
Yeah, good afternoon to you too, and thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Now, given the projection revenue of 34.82 trillion naira, what are the specific strategies do you think to boost government revenue, particularly from the non-oil sources? Are there plans for further tax reforms, since that seems to be the way the government always goes each time it needs to raise more money?
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, as you're familiar with the happenings in the National Assembly, and as it would be with every Nigerian now, that there are 4 tax bills sitting before the National Assembly that seeks to do the way we, sort of collect taxes and to sort of provide reprieve to Nigerians and businesses. And so the import of that bill, when passed, a significant portion of that is supposed to, affect, government revenue collection. Even if some of that would not come into effect immediately, but at some point during the year, when these reforms have been implemented and have taken effect, we expect that to, lead to better efficiency in terms of collection, and that ultimately should grow revenues. But if I come back to the fundamentals, and I don't know why you skipped, oil revenue, because the oil revenue forms a chunk of government's revenue projection for 2024. As you know, projection is at about 21 trillion naira. And if you look at what government has generated, both in 2023 from that sector, it was 2.3 trillion naira in 2023. In the first 6 months of 2024, government has been able to do 4 trillion naira. Even if we've been able to raise production to 1.8 million barrels, 21 trillion naira, as the case may be, still seems like a tall order, in my own opinion. And so it would be interesting to see, what exactly is driving government's optimism, in that regard. Granted, there have been some new FIDs. More recently, the Shell $5 billion FID, but that's an exploration contract. And so you expect that the gains from that would begin to show, in the next couple of years, not immediate. So the gains are not immediate for those new investments in terms of the production numbers. If you also look at some of the legacy issues we've been battling, oil theft, though there have been significant improvements in the production numbers, but with regards to specific interventions to terminate or end, oil theft as a phenomenon in that sector, it doesn't seem like a lot is being done with regards to metering, whether it's the flow stations, the wellheads, as the case may be, and complete fiscalization as the case may be. This should significantly stop, to a large extent, reduce oil theft, but we've not seen a lot of movement in that regard. And so it would be interesting to see what exactly is driving government's optimism to raise, oil revenue to those numbers, as the case may be in 2025.
Okay.
Coming back to non-oil revenue, we also see that there's, a bit of optimism with regards to solid minerals revenue. As you know, we've not done more than 7-8 billion over the, over the last couple of years annually with regards to solid minerals revenue. But we see an optimism to raise it to 15 billion naira and then 25 billion naira. That's still extremely small, considering the fact that Nigeria is blessed in commercial quantity with solid minerals across the length and breadth of the federation, whether it's with lithium, bitumen, gold, and the likes. But we've not been able to fully optimize or maximize the potentials of that sector, whether it's with regards to regulations or providing the right environment for capital to come in, and so that the investments can drive growth in that sector.
All right, Amy, let's talk about what the budget meets the common man. Let's talk transport, energy, telecommunications. How will the budget prioritize infrastructure development, especially in the critical sectors like I've just mentioned, transport, energy, and telecommunications? What are the specific projects and initiatives that will receive significant funding?
Yeah, thank you. We're not seeing the breakdown to be able to make this assessment, as the case may be. But we've seen that flowing from even the previous administration, improving the railway network is one that the governments have invested in. But there needs to be a lot more done in that regard to be able to, increase connectivity amongst, the different states, whether it's for ease in the transport of humans or ease in the transport of goods, as the case may be. Maybe we need to begin to look at high-speed rails, because the locomotive, trains that currently exist, has, the time frame required to move from one extreme end of the country to the other, is also one that increases the travel time and, and cost for individuals and businesses. So it would be good to look in the direction of finding PPPs that bring high-speed rails to ease and increase the movement of goods and services across the length and breadth of the Federation. With regards to road infrastructure, of course, with the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road, there's not much information in the public, especially as it regards the budgetary provisions for that particular road. So it's difficult to assess what has been allocated, for that road through the budget, what has been spent, through that budget. And, I'm not a fan of off-budget expenditure. Government should be able to put all of its expenditure plans in the budget so that civil society, other accountability groups, the media can now use those numbers to track, how exactly government is implementing its plans and programs across board. If I come to the digital economy or telecom sector, as the case may be, in terms of policy, it would seem that that particular ministry has spent a lot of time in drafting policy documents, but we've not really seen how that has translated to real impact on the ground, whether it's with regards to providing improved digital access for persons in hard-to-reach areas, improving broadband connectivity across board. We've been suffering from poor internet connectivity over the last couple of months from the service providers that currently exist. And so we do hope that more attention would be given in that regard on the ground to improve the quality of digital services available, as the case may be. If I come to the financial services sector, that's also one sector that, especially for the tier one banks that have had to move from one system to the other, customers have been going through a lot with regards to the ease of transactions. And it's good that we've had some of these fintech companies, hold the fort whilst that transition has been happening. But we do hope that as we move into 2025, they will be able to wrap up that process of transition so that banking services would become more available and accessible to customers for them to be able to transact.
Ini, I want to say thank you, and such remarkable retention abilities. You actually took on everything I asked. Thank you very much, Ini Abong.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and have a lovely day.
You're welcome. And now coming up, military drone strike kills 15 civilians on Sudan's closed highway. We'll have the details for you when you join us after. And you're welcome back. Now, a Malian appeals court has upheld the prison sentence of prominent academic Etienne Fakaba Sissoko, who was convicted earlier this year for criticizing the ruling junta. Sissoko, an economist and university professor, was sentenced in May to 2 years in prison, with 1 year suspended for his 2023 book titled Propaganda, Agitation and Harassment, Government Communication During the Transition in Mali. His lawyer, Ibrahim Maruf Sako, confirmed that the appeal court in Bamako upheld the ruling on Monday. Sissoko was charged with harming the reputation of the state, defamation, and dissemination of false news, distributing public peace, or rather disturbing public peace. Detained since late March, Sissoko remains one of the few dissenting voices in Mali amid a growing crackdown on critics of the military junta, which seized power in a coup in 2020 and 2021. In the meantime, Mali's army has announced the capture of a top leader of the Islamic State group's Sahel branch and the killing of several fighters during an operation in the eastern part of the country. In a statement on Monday, the military revealed that the operation took place on Sunday in Tagadikiyate, located in the Manaka region. The army confirmed the capture of Ahmad Ajdita, described as the senior leader of the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara. According to the military, Dita was responsible for numerous violations against civilians and coordinated attacks on Malian armed forces. The operation also resulted in neutralization of several EIGS fighters and the recovery of military equipment, including improvised explosive devices. Mali, grappling with political, economic, and security crisis, has faced ongoing violence from groups linked to the Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State since 2012. The army says it remains committed to combating terrorism and restoring peace to the region. The Umkhonto Wesizwe Party celebrated its first anniversary at the Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban over the weekend, a milestone moment marking the party's rise since its formation. The event saw the attendance of progressive political forces, but one notable absence has raised eyebrows: the economic freedom fighters. Meanwhile, the EFF held its third National People's Assembly without its senior member, Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, who also did not make it to the party's Central Command team. According to its leader, Julius Malema, anyone absent from their elective conference was not considered a leader. Meanwhile, EFF and MK have been on loggerheads since two of its senior members, the former deputy leader Floyd Shivambu and Dali Mpufu, left to join Jacob Zuma's party, the MK. And to discuss this, we're joined by Sanusha Naidu, a foreign policy analyst. Sanusha, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. So let's go right ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Good. So there's a bit of a delay, so I'll remember that. That's for me. Now, what impact do you think Floyd Shivambu's departure from the EFF will have on the party's internal dynamics and its public perception as well?
Well, I think the departure, or rather the resignation of Floyd Shivambu from the EFF, and of course his admission and membership, and a senior membership as well of the Umkhonto Wesizwe Party, has been in the news for a while. I think initially you could see how this had impacted on the leadership of the party, particularly the EFF. We saw how, for example, some Malema had been very, I think gutted is the word to use, around what this had created in terms of the structure, but also it came out not long after Floyd's resignation to kind of take back the advantage, to say that this is a betrayal. It's people that are looking to move and talking about self-interest. And of course, he keeps repeating this as well at the Congress over the weekend. And in particular, I think that what some have argued is that with Floyd's departure from the EFF, it loses some of its strategic ambit, it loses some of its intellectual architecture, and also it kind of loses that ability to mobilize. And this, I think you're seeing it as well in the context of how Floyd has found his feet in the MK party. He's been given a very prominent position in terms of strategy, in terms of convening, and of course trying to also deal with the idea of creating structures in the MK party. And I suspect that with Floyd's departure and also being under the shadow of Malema in the EFF, it gives Mr. Shivambu a little bit more creative space in terms of where he wants to be. So I think it's a blow to the EFF, and more importantly, I think it's one that they have to regroup. But as we've seen with the nomination of the top executive over the weekend, it's kind of focusing on that of how do they regroup and go forward, because remember, it is in KZN, KwaZulu-Natal, the real home base of the MK party, where the EFF had taken quite a beating in the May 2024 elections.
So I see what you're saying. It seems, however, that they're leaving these parties just to join the MK for position. But that's not my question. My question now is, what are your thoughts on the relationship between the EFF and MK? What are the current tensions that have surfaced between these two entities?
Well, I think that in response to your point, it's not about leaving the EFF to just join the MK party for positions. And I think that is something we have to be very careful in casting perceptions and assumptions around. I always maintain this point. Political parties are fickle entities. They always will remain fickle, whether they are in South Africa or in Nigeria. And the transactional nature of political parties and how people move between political parties is something that's not a phenomenon only in South Africa. But in terms of the impact that this would have between the EFF and the MK party, I think one of the areas where a lot of attention has been focused on is the fact that both the MK party and the EFF are the two largest parties that are in the National Assembly, our parliament, and constitute the the official opposition in the Progressive Caucus, which was established just after the elections in May. Now, with the MK party being the official opposition in the National Assembly and being designated that because of the Democratic Alliance being part of the Government of National Unity, it does raise concerns about how this Progressive Caucus made up of other smaller oppositional parties like the African Transformation Movement and of course the Cape Colored Congress. How would this actually impact that relationship? And so in that context, I think we'll have to watch that and check to what extent this tension or the intent or the internal dynamics between the EFF and the MK will play out in consolidating their role in Parliament or not, or will they continue to play that role, because despite these difficult challenges around those that have left the EFF, including the advocate Dali Mpofo and others who have now joined the the MK party, how would that kind of construct and constitute that? And as we run into 2026, which is the local government elections, we have to also watch to see what kind of electoral space will the EFF manage to retract and take back from the MK. And that, I think, are some of those watching briefs.
So we are saying Ndlozi's been notably absent during key events such as the MPA. What does this suggest about the role and influence within the EFF moving forward? Do you see Ndlozi's absence as a sign of potential disillusionment with the party's direction, or could it be strategic for further or future political positioning?
Well, there has been speculation that with his absence from the Congress over the weekend, that there was an inherent intention between himself and now the re-elected leadership of the EFF, Julius Malema, for a third time. He's leading the party. And so in that way, there's been that kind of dynamic that the two are actually having this kind of internal battle or internal tension. But we've seen recently, I think it was yesterday or today, we've seen Dr. Ndlozi actually congratulate the new executive of the EFF, giving them his kind of congratulatory support and saying he believes in this executive. What this means for him, it's not clear. But at the same time, there's been speculation that ever since Floyd Shirvambu departed from the EFF, that Ndlozi found himself in quite a difficult terrain in the EFF. And I think to a large extent, the challenge right now is whether there is a sense of a succession within the EFF beyond Malema. The fact that he gets re-elected for the third time as leader of the party also talks to what is going to happen to the centering of this party beyond the personality of Julius Malema and others, and that seems to be another dynamic that needs to be discussed. But I think the EFF and MK, that those relations, I think, will continue to remain vulnerable at times. I think you got very big personalities in both political parties. You got Julius Malema in the EFF. You've got the former president Jacob Zuma in the MK party, and they're also going through some kind of questions around whether the MK party is really kind of swallowing up opposition parties, particularly in the progressive caucus, the Black Progressive Caucus, and that's another debate. So coming back to Ndlozi, I think the question would be is, does he see himself continuing within the EFF as an ordinary member, or does he see himself moving towards another kind of trajectory of his political life?
Sanusha, thank you very much. You've got all the details, I see, about the political situation in South Africa, and we will definitely come back to you next time for more. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
Now in more news, the Sudanese military has been accused of launching a drone strike which led to the killing of 15 civilians traveling in a dairy transport vehicle on a closed highway. An advocacy group comprising lawyers said the attack occurred on the Omdurman-Barra road linking Khartoum and North Kordofan states, a route shut down by the government in April after fighting erupted between the army and the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF. The road, also known as the Export Road, was closed amid accusations the RSF was using it to transport looted goods and fighters. The army had warned that any movement on the road would be considered a military target. And now, still ahead, U.S. gun violence as we take a look at the situation with the shooting from yesterday's instance in the U.S. And you're welcome back. Now, a 15-year-old female student was identified by police as the assailant who opened fire Monday at a school in the U.S. state of Wisconsin, where a fellow student and teacher were killed and a suspected shooter was found dead. According to Sean Barnes, the police chief in Madison, the state capital, during a news briefing stated that three individuals were killed and 7 others were injured at the Abundant Life Christian School, a private Christian school with roughly 400 pupils. Now, for more on this, I'm joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, it's good to see you. I'm just going to go right ahead and ask you if you could tell us what the latest on the school shooting is in Wisconsin.
Well, a grim day for the school community there, the Abundant Life Christian School in Madison in Wisconsin. As you said, 3 people died in that shooting. One of them was the shooter herself, a 15-year-old female student called Natalie Rutnow, who was known as Samantha. 1 other student and 1 teacher died in that shooting, as well as thought the shooter actually shot herself. 6 other people were injured, and 2 of those people have life-threatening injuries. So it was actually a 2nd grade student who made the call to 911, so a very young child there. The police arrived within 3 minutes of that 911 call being made. Now, the Abundant Life Christian School is a school that serves children from kindergarten right up to grade 12, 420 students, a private school, as you said there, one that did have active shooter drills. It had done one earlier on this year. They didn't have a specialist police officer who was attributed to that school, but they had, however, uploaded plans of their school to the police. It's a special thing that you can do where you upload the blueprint of your school to the police. So when the police arrived, they knew that the school very well. They had a map of it and were able to come to where that 2nd grader said the shooting was taking place. It's also worth noting that this is the 83rd school shooting that's taken place in the United States this year.
83rd. Well, Afia, what do we know about the shooter then?
Well, yes, 15-year-old Natalie Rutnow, who went by the name of Samantha. Now, authorities are aware of writings that have been posted by this person and by another person who's alleged to have a connection with the victim, but they're trying to verify at the moment whether those writings are authentic. The suspect's family are cooperating with police. Now, one of the questions is going to be, where did Natalie, known as Samantha, get this gun? And of course, the why. Why did she do this? Or what was the motive? Now, at the moment, police are not looking to charge Natalie's parents with the shooting, but that is at this time. And we know also recently that has been something that has arisen in previous school shootings this year. Parents have been held responsible for their children getting a hand on guns And in this instance, we don't know yet where the gun has come from, if it was registered to her parents. Now, the 15-year-old suspect who carried out the shooting, she didn't have any other interactions with the police and wasn't known to the police at this time. Madison police are going to have a further briefing at noon their time, where we expect to have more details on the suspects.
Okay. Afia, we know that investigations are going on, but what should we expect today from these investigations?
Yeah, aside from that briefing that will take place in a few hours' time, it's all about making sure that family members of the victims are aware of what's going on. Flags are flying at half-mast all across the county of Wisconsin, and that's effective until November 22nd to honour the victims. There's going to be a candlelight vigil this evening for the victims as well, with the city mayor going to be in attendance. Now, some schools were on lockdown yesterday. They were put on a secure hold when this incident occurred, but all schools in the area in Wisconsin will be open again today. We're not sure about the particular school, the Abundant Life Christian School, when that will be open again, but we should get more information from that briefing, which will take place in a few hours' time.
Well, I want to say thank you very much, Afia, for bringing us details on the shooting. Thank you. And now sports. Chelsea winger Mikhailo Mudryk has failed a drug test, the Premier League club has confirmed. The Blues say they were contacted by the Football Association after an adverse finding in a routine urine test. Ukraine international Mudryk denies knowingly using any banned substance, and Chelsea says they will work to establish what caused the test result. The 23-year-old last played for Chelsea on the 28th of November and has missed the past 5 matches in all competitions. He was included in the matchday squad for the Blues' win against Aston Villa on 1st December, but did not feature. Head coach Enzo Maresca has said publicly that Mudryk's absence was down to illness. And that's all this hour. But before we go, let's take a look at some of the stories that we brought your way. House of Representatives to invite military chiefs over alleged unlawful detention by 177 Nigerian Army Battalion in Nasarawa State. And military says it will reintegrate surrendering bandits as it intensifies crackdown on Lakurawa in the northwest. Military drone strike kills 15 civilians on Sudan's closed highway. Now, do remember, you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.